The Detroit Lions go to Baltimore and take one from the now 1-2 Baltimore Ravens, and a QB car wash in the NFL that is making a lot of backups look like starters, and a whole lot more from today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers. Appreciate you stopping in, and appreciate you even more when you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. We're going to talk Lions-Ravens Monday Nighter. Really caught my attention here with these Detroit Lions and what's going on with these two football teams, and a really good matchup on Monday night. The McShanahan QB car wash, as I'm calling it currently, and rehabbing the image of numerous quarterbacks around the NFL. And it pays to have a good offensive coordinator and play caller, which that is changing up for the 0-3 Titans. Should we bury any and all of the 0-3 teams so far this year, Matt? So that is what we're getting into on today's show, which is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Let's start with the Monday Nighter to finish up week 3 action. And it was the Detroit Lions improving to 2-1. They go on the road at the Baltimore Ravens and win it 38-30. The now 1-2 Baltimore Ravens. They've lost to two good football teams and have a blowout win in between. But I think the biggest thing is, and I asked you before we went on the air when I was building the background, I was like, is it fair to say the Lions roughed up the Baltimore Ravens? And you said, yes, they won both lines of scrimmage. And I think that was the big takeaway from this game, is that the Lions said, we're going to hand the ball off to David Montgomery, and he's going to look like vintage Barry Sanders running for 151 yards and 2 tutties.
Yeah, I thought very entertaining game. I still think these are two heavyweight contenders, and I've had the Lions kind of in tier 2. I might be selling them short after a performance like this in a hostile environment, tough road trip. And I thought Lamar played well, and I was really happy to get Andrews back involved. He's kind of been a forgotten guy through a couple weeks. But yes, I absolutely think the story of the evening was Detroit winning at both lines of scrimmage. I mean, sacking Lamar 7 times rarely happens. He's hard to get on the ground, and I thought their O-line was often overwhelmed by Hutchinson and company. They're trying to give him extra attention, and everyone else was thriving. But really, as you mentioned, they were getting pushed around on defense, and Matabuke wasn't in. I think that's noteworthy. He's clearly their best defensive front player. And Van Noy was out as well. We know he's a really solid player as well. But still, I thought this game was clearly won on both lines of scrimmage by the Lions with big physical play. And their defensive tackles might not be real exciting, but Tyleik Williams and DJ Reader, that's a lot of beef. And I think the Lions O-line, I'm not sure it's where it used to be, but it's pretty darn good. And that interior is just fine. Yeah.
The biggest question mark, aside from both offensive and defensive coordinators for the Lions this season, was replacing Frank Ragnow. And that looked pretty good for them on the offensive line against the Baltimore Ravens here. You mentioned the sack production from the Detroit Lions, sacking Lamar Jackson 7 times, 2.5 sacks for Muhammad in this one. Aiden Hutchinson was everywhere. It was pretty unbelievable watching the Lions both get pressure on Lamar Jackson, but also while keeping him in the pocket.
Yeah, it was really well done.
And partially because if you look at the box score, you think, oh man, Lamar Jackson had an awesome game. And he definitely wasn't bad in this game. 3 touchdown passes, 288 yards passing, 21 of 27, 148.1 QB rating. Not far from perfect there, but the 7 sacks. And I didn't watch the all 22 to see if guys were just getting strapped in the defensive secondary of the Detroit Lions. But Lamar Jackson, some of those sacks were on him, kind of just like not knowing where to go, hanging out too long in the pocket, kind of retreating in weird ways and couldn't get away like he usually does. And so I don't know if that's on Lamar. You credit the Lions, but something seemed really off on too many snaps there for Lamar taking some of those sacks and how long. And again, it's like, so I questions like, was just nobody open? Did he not take off quick enough? Because, some people point to Lamar and say, well, he runs too much. Was he trying to be too pocket passery? I don't know. I have some questions there. But clearly the Detroit Lions won both lines of scrimmage, which was the key in this game.
So a theme lately, and it was very apparent in the two most recent Ravens games against the Bills, where they were eliminated and then early in the season, is teams are playing more and more man coverage against Lamar, which used to be no, we can't turn our back to this guy. But the Ravens knew that, and therefore, when the receivers they've gotten are more zone beaters than man beaters. So I think that man coverage, and I bring this up because I didn't watch the All-22 either, but the Lions were the man heaviest team in the league last year. Now their defensive coordinator went to the Jets, and now the Jets are at the top of the league in man coverage, but they're considered a heavy man team any way you cut it. I think that's a Campbell philosophy. And you would think playing man coverage against Lamar is crazy, but if you can keep him contained with the rush and make him pat the ball while his receivers struggle to get off man coverage, like as good as Zay is and Flowers and Bateman are, they're better zone beater types because the Ravens didn't think they'd get much man when they built this team. You know what I mean? And I think his numbers are so extremely good. Well, they're so extremely awesome, but against man, they're merely real good. You know what I mean? Like he's not bad against anything, but he's just real good against man as opposed to incredible against zone.
I'm looking it up right now with the man zone percentages, and the Lions are near the top in the NFL. And in fact, let's see, this season so far, the Detroit Lions near 40% man coverage against the Ravens was tied for the 13th highest percentage of man coverage.
I didn't know that. Makes me sound smart.
Yeah, in every game this year. And so, they're a man coverage team, and they played their most man coverage of the season in the 3 weeks so far. The Detroit Lions did this week on Monday Night Football.
Okay.
Ravens also actually even more man coverage heavy than the Lions.
Okay. Yeah, teams used to be petrified. Why would you play man against Lamar? I can't turn my back on that guy. Well, but if his guys can't get open, well.
Jahmyr Gibbs fantasy owners get the 2 touchdowns, but David Montgomery was clearly the better back in this game, and clearly that two-headed monster is not going away. But the touchdowns kind of save everybody's butt there for Jahmyr Gibbs owners. But man, I think looking at some of the questions we talked about with the Lions that have been answered, and it was a little wonky in week 1 for the Lions.
Yeah.
But I think the Dan Campbell gutsiness is still there, and John Morton's play calling, the I don't know what you call it, jet sweep. It's not even a jet sweep, right? It was like the handoff that Amon-Ra St. Brown pitches it out, goal line. Like there's a lot of ways that play could go. Yeah. You get 0 points, but instead they add the touchdown to Jahmyr Gibbs. He pitches it out to the outside, and he uses speed and catches the corner. Calling certain plays at certain times when the Ravens are trying to stop a short yardage run, the Lions go over the top with it. So still playing the gutsy brand of football, and that paid off for him in this game. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think that I say this a lot. There's certainly some play calling advantages when your head coach is going to go for it on 4th down. You can do some, you can run the ball on 3rd and 6, and if you're going for it on 4th. But I do think this aggressive style players love. It's not just, some of the like Kansas City Chief ring around the rosy stuff was a bit much, but it still keeps it fun. But I was sitting there thinking that I should have brought this up earlier when we were discussing this game. Henry has 2 huge fumbles now in 3 games, and he never really got going in this game. And then People that know me, I mean, if you go for it on fourth and don't make it, I count that as a turnover. And the Ravens were down on like the 2-yard line, gave it to Henry 3 times in a row, didn't quite get in. And then the fourth play, I don't know what they called. I mean, it looked like a busted play, Lamar rolling out. He ended up taking a big sack. I don't know if anyone did their job on that one, but sometimes, I think the Ravens are unbelievably good. And I'm not just saying this from a Steeler perspective, but I will say I think there is a reason sometimes they don't quite win the big one is Harbaugh can get in his own head a little bit against the Bills in the playoffs or a big game like this. Trust me, it happens against the Steelers because they're such a rivalry too, and Tomlin and Harbaugh know each other so well that I think sometimes he outthinks himself, as opposed to just give it to Henry 4 times at the goal line. You know what I mean?
Right. Derrick Henry had the nice 28-yard run early in the game. That was over half of his rushing yards for the game. That
yeah.
Late
breaking news.
Oh, here we go.
A sounder for me?
Oh, I do have the sounder.
Oh, okay.
Here it is.
Adam Schefter reports at 12:27 Eastern. Russell Wilson has been benched in favor of Jaxson Dart. That didn't take long. 2 games ago, he threw for like 800 yards.
The New York Giants are going to come up as a topic here. We'll talk about the Jaxson Dart Giants. We'll talk about the no longer play calling Callahan Tennessee Titans. We'll talk about some 0-3 teams, which ones to bury, and the quarterback car wash that is happening in the NFL next. This episode of Peacock Williamson brought to you by 5 Hour Energy and the all-new tasty caffeine bold flavors of coffee. 5 Hour Energies. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots, delivering tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. And the best part about 5 Hour Energies is obviously how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I've got one in my golf bag for the back 9 that always helps me get through the end of my golf rounds. And I've been trying to golf more and more. And I've been trying to walk more and more. So, I'm not riding in the cart either. So, I need a little extra pick-me-up on these old legs to get through that back 9. Last night, before my late night slow pitch softball game. I've always been a night owl, but the older I get, those 10 p.m. softball games get a little rough there to finish up 7 grueling innings of slow pitch softball. Have it in your desk at work, in your car, and reach for your 5 Hour Energy whenever you need it without the crash. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. So a topic we wanted to talk about today was the QB car wash and what is going on in the NFL with this group of coaches that if you are a quarterback, you want to go to. And it kind of ties in with our conversation next about, Cam Ward. If where do you want to go? You don't want to be that number 1 draft pick that ends up with 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 years. And what happens is your career goes a certain direction. And what happens is you end up being a backup for Kyle Shanahan, or a backup quarterback for Sean McVay, or a quarterback for Matt LaFleur, or a quarterback for Kevin O'Connell, right? And all of a sudden, your career starts to look a lot different than when you had a bad offensive coordinator at the start of your career. Or maybe you're a veteran and you just need a little bit of love and tenderness in your development as a quarterback. And I do think that a lot of quarterbacks are ruined. I don't think it's 100% that landing spot matters only, because talent is part of it, and how you work is a huge part of it. And a lot of quarterback is physical, and a lot of quarterback, even more than physical, is from the neck up. So there's a lot of factors that goes into this. But the more we see in the NFL in the current era, Matt, it's hard to deny which offensive coordinators you should want to play for if you are a quarterback.
Yeah, and I got quite a list here of interesting former early picks. And I think Kevin O'Connell recently said, I think he was asked about McCarthy, that many more teams ruin quarterbacks than quarterbacks ruin teams, and I believe that. And I think it's that succinct, to be honest with you. So this really, I don't think we're the only ones talking about this. I mean, it's not some trend that we just found out of thin air because we're so smart, but Daniel Jones came to mind, as the latest and greatest. I mean, they're 3-0. He's playing the best of his career. Now, I'm not saying any of these guys are going to be Elway and Marino, but they've rejuvenated once disappointing careers that were high picks. And there's just a theme with all of them. I mean, you go somewhere, it's a tough situation, you fail, everyone thinks you stink, and they're smart enough to go sit behind someone or take pressure off their shoulders with a really smart organization, head coach, however you want to look at it, that's offensive minded. And what did Daniel Jones do last year when he left the Giants? He went to Minnesota, and Minnesota got a ton out of Darnold, who was basically the same kind of flop. And Darnold will tell you the best thing he ever did to his career was go to San Francisco for the year before he even went to Minnesota and just hang with Shanahan, but not be expected to be the starter. Just sit there and learn. Baker Mayfield is such a good example. I mean, Cleveland, Carolina, what a disaster. Then he goes and hangs with McVay a little bit and then picks it up a better organization. Is that maybe what we're going to see from Wentz because he's been with a couple teams and he goes to Minnesota? I'm not saying that ship might have sailed. Who knows? He's a little older than those guys. Fields did a year with Pittsburgh that week one, it looked good. Some of these names I'm not saying are going to hit. Don't get me wrong, but a lot have. I mean, Jones, Baker, Darnold, Mac Jones is worth bringing up. I don't think it's an accident that he chose the Niners. No way.
Don't you think a team would be like, "Oh, Mac Jones, that might be a nice little, at the very least, stopgap starter for us," rather than nobody in the NFL wanting to sign him as a free agent in the first day of free agency, and he was purely viewed as a backup around the NFL, and has looked good in 2 starts now with Kyle Shanahan's 49ers. And so, I think his image completely rehabbed in only 2 games, which didn't help him to start and play games for the Jacksonville Jaguars last year, and it didn't help him in any season other than his rookie season. Only got worse in New England with the Patriots, with a defensive coordinator calling offensive plays. I mean, that's one of the most obvious I can think of is like, okay, young quarterback looks pretty good as a rookie. He was maybe overdrafted still, but looked good as a rookie. He was a Pro Bowler, like 9 quarterbacks dropped out or whatever. So it was kind of a dirty Pro Bowl, but whatever. He was fine as a rookie. And then all of a sudden you have a defensive guy calling plays on offense and everything that fell apart in New England there. It's hard to put all that on the quarterback. And all of a sudden, hey, look, now I'm with Shanahan. This is the quarterback people expected to see.
Yeah, and maybe Mac Jones isn't quite as talented as some of these other names, Darnold, Fields, etc. But they all were top half of the first round draft picks. I mean, they can all throw the football. I mean, they all have the prerequisite traits. And some other names I thought were interesting. Like, I'm reaching on these, but Trubisky has spent a lot of time behind Josh Allen. Like, I think Trubisky's ship has sailed. Don't get me wrong. I don't think all of a sudden, he's Wentz, Trubisky. But I think at least I just went through all the quarterbacks drafted high. I mean, he at least was smart to go be a backup in a really good organization. Say we want about Jameis Winston, but after his 30-30 year, he went and just backed up with Sean Payton in New Orleans. He was smart enough to say, and he got reeled in a little bit. I mean, again, I don't think Wentz, Trubisky, Winston, all of a sudden at 35 years old are going to turn into the next Kurt Warner or anything like that, but they at least did it, and maybe it helps their careers. Is this promising for Anthony Richardson at his next stop? Maybe. I wrote down Will Levis. I don't really believe that one's ever going to happen. And I don't think Zach Wilson's ever going to happen. I really don't think Pickett's ever going to happen. But you mentioned Willis off the air. Him getting traded to Green Bay might have been the best thing that ever happened. He might be the next one. You know what I mean? Like a year from now, we're like, remember when we thought Willis out of Liberty might be a high pick,
There's a lot of evidence to it right now. And especially those 4 coaches, McVay, Shanahan, O'Connell, LaFleur, and and obviously there's some other good coaches around the NFL that you would want to play for, but just and teams know this too, and they're trying to hire other guys away and offensive coordinators from those teams, and sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't. And there's, and I urge anyone who hasn't listened to the podcasts, of course, after you listen to Peacock and Williamson, and then hit that subscribe button, go check out the Play Callers podcast, which talks about the iron sharpens iron atmosphere under Mike Shanahan with Kyle and McVay and LaFleur and all those guys that were together and really honing their craft together, and how competitive that environment was. And it created, I think, some of the top coaches in the NFL, and you have to be up to that standard to even hang with those guys. And so I think that's what you learn in those buildings, and I think that's really important.
1,000%. And again, it's just takes some. I think it's a two-pronged conversation too. Is maybe the young men coming out, and especially a lot of these guys, didn't stay in college as long as the guys are now because they weren't getting paid, and like maybe you came out a little early and too much was asked of you. And this has gone on since the history of the league. You go to the worst organization in the league, and you're not the savior. You can't save the Carolina Panthers or the Jets or the Browns that are always bad, and everyone thinks you're the Superman, but you're not. You're just a really good young prospect, and it overwhelms you, and you just have less pressure at stop two. And what we've been talking about, stop two also has a really smart quarterback guy, Yeah,
a really good coach, and you learn the game in the way that you wish you would have learned it probably originally without the pressure. And yeah, you're right. It is definitely multi-pronged there. Next, speaking of some of those bad organizations that drafted quarterbacks high, a couple of first-round quarterbacks. Now we know, breaking news, that Jaxson Dart will be the starter for the New York Giants. Is it too late to save their season, even if he plays well? And Cam Ward, perfect example, already on play caller number 2 in his short NFL career. We're looking at 0-3 teams. Is it already too late? Is it over in 2025 for those squads? Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL season's here, and it's moving quickly. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff in week 4 with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team play, and there's lines for week 4 all the way through week 18 for your football team. Tons of props. However you like to play, it fits the way you bet at FanDuel, because you go weekly lines, player props, building a same game parlay. You can jump into live action as it unfolds if you feel the momentum going a certain way. Quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So with the breaking bit of news, let's start with the 2 bits of breaking news on this Tuesday following week 3.
Isn't it crazy, BP? We're in week 3 already, and we're having like play callers replaced and quarterbacks replaced because you've lost 3 games in a row. Baseball, someone lose 3 games in a row and it's not even in the headlines.
And look, we didn't expect the Tennessee Titans to be good magically overnight. And there's been some really positive things from Cam Ward so far in his rookie season. But the Tennessee Titans are one of those 0-3 teams. There's 6 0-3 teams now after 3 weeks. Tennessee Titans are one of them. They have a -43, the worst in the NFL point differential. And Callahan has not done a great job, I think, and I think a lot of people are pointing at him as maybe he's in over his head. Maybe him realizing that right now to try to get this thing corrected is giving up play calling duties. And so we're looking at the Tennessee Titans and a young quarterback, a perfect example based on our last conversation in the last segment, Matt. We have a young quarterback who's going into his 4th NFL game, and he's already on his 2nd offensive coordinator. And if you project this out to potentially an entire coaching staff getting fired, because this is kind of the first step in how that goes. We've seen this a lot in the NFL, Matt. And then now he's on coordinator and offensive play caller number 3 in his second season in the NFL.
Yeah. So I just want to throw this out super quick. I don't mean to derail the train here, but I retweeted it from Warren Sharp, and he put out yardage differential. You mentioned the point differential, and Tennessee's is terrible. So the 4th worst team in yardage differential is Miami. They've given up 266 more yards than they've produced. And then there's this insane gap where the Steelers and Bengals have allowed 417 more yards than they've gained. Both of which teams are 2-1, by the way. And then there's the Titans at 454 yards that they've been outgained. Part of me just wanted to throw the Steelers' weird voodoo in this mix. Bengals at least had Burrow to start. And then there's the Titans kind of at the bottom of the league. And I'm sure the play calling thing came from ownership, which, hey, Coach Callahan, why don't you take the play calling thing off your plate and focus on the team? But that's kind of like step one of, I think Cam Ward might have a new coach next year,
Do you think it was that kind of a conversation, or is like, hey, Brian, change something or you're out? You know what I mean? Like, do something big today.
This is terrible. Yeah, absolutely could be. Right. But I hate seeing this for Ward because, man, I had mixed feelings on him as a prospect early in the process and even up till the end. And then he started to really, really grow on me. And I thought, if he'd gone the year before, I would have taken him over Penix, McCarthy, Nix, but not the other 3. And then I've been watching him since he's been the Titans. I'm like, I put a tweet out 1 week ago. I said, Drake May and Cam Ward are the next 2 great AFC quarterbacks. I mean, I think he is super impressive. And I hate to say it, a dumb organization, Tennessee, I think qualifies, ruins this guy. And maybe keeping the head coach isn't the right way to save him either way. But if they ruin this guy, man, what a shame. Like, he should go visit Shanahan after he's through, right?
He needs a car wash, man.
Right. And just seen this so many times. And I hope Dart's not the same and Ward's not the same. And,
So we are burying the Titans. No shot. And, and the reason I wanted to bring this up because, and I didn't fact check Boomer, but Chris Berman in the fastest 3 minutes Monday Night Football said that only one team this century has started 0-3 and made the playoffs.
Yeah, I haven't fact checked that either, but that's pretty crazy.
And it doesn't look good for these 3 teams. No. Next is the New York Giants. Breaking news: the Jaxson Dart era has begun, and this is another one where I don't think a coaching staff is going to survive this season for the New York Giants. No. And so you kind of start that cycle, and you hope it doesn't go that same way that we've kind of talked about for some of these young quarterbacks for the Giants, where you don't really have much of a shot, and you're already starting in week 3, and you're going to finish out the season for a lame duck head coach potentially. But I got to point to Brian Daboll in all of this as a guy who maybe might not be that good of a head coach.
Yeah.
I saw something making its rounds on Twitter yesterday. It was a video from last year. Malik Neighbors was asked about the season and why it's going poorly. And this was more in reference to Daniel Jones and the Colts fans being like, yeah, we stole a good player, but he was getting ruined in New York with bad coaching all this time. And Malik Neighbors had this quote about why things were so bad. And he's like, and it's not the quarterback. And then like in the context now of hearing a rookie wide receiver talk about how, yes, it is bad, but it's not the quarterback.
Not the quarterback.
And you kind of start.
Not me.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah. So that's where the Giants are at 0-3. I think it's pretty easy to say the Giants are pretty cooked right now. They got a tough schedule, but I'm excited to see what the Jaxson Dart era looks like, and he impressed me.
I got no problem making that move now. Wilson's not going to pull you out of this. It is time to bury them. Mm-hmm. I just hope, that because we've seen in NFL history 8,000 times, this organization is super high on Dart. Everything about Dart has been positive. I mean, you watch that Sunday night game, he came in for 2 plays, and half the time all they talked about was Dart. And then the next coach doesn't really like Dart. Like, you didn't draft him. I don't care about Dart.
Right. Or you draft so high that you can't pass on the guy that's there. We saw the Arizona Cardinals do this, and to be honest with you, I don't know that Kyler Murray's the guy either, but they were like, well, it's for sure better to just draft Kyler Murray, even though we just took a top 10 quarterback the year before. And and that was a top 10 quarterback.
Like Dart comes in this week, they still end up losing 13 games.
Mm-hmm.
They fall in love with Nussmeier with the second pick and take him, and then Dart ends up with Purdy's backup, and
right.
And then the year after that, he turns into a star again.
He's a starter somewhere,
right? Like rinse, repeat.
We projected the New Orleans Saints to not be a good football team this year. They were competitive the first 2 weeks. They lost in one-score games, had an opportunity to win both of those games. And then the dam broke a little bit in week 3, and they got blown out by the Seattle Seahawks. They are tied with the Titans now with the worst point differential in the NFL, 0-3. I think that's kind of is this that week 3 team, the team we expect to see the rest of the way for the New Orleans Saints? Pretty much got to bury them, I would assume.
Yeah, and I hesitate to do this because we probably would have done the Browns a week ago, and then they come and they beat the Packers. Desperate teams do crazy things in this league.
Panthers with a big 30-0 win. I
knew there's another
buried them. Yeah,
right. Yeah, we would have after 2 weeks. So maybe we'll regret one of these. But to cut to the chase, I think they're all pretty easy except for Houston.
Well, you got the 0-3 Dolphins, who have just looked awful. You got the 0-3 Jets, which I didn't expect a lot from, but again, kind of like the Saints, they were competitive in some games.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose your quarterback, and then the dam starts to break a little bit. And of the point differential, the Jets and the Texans are a little bit better than the other teams. The Houston Texans have lost 3 close games. They have a -13 point differential in their 3 losses. The defense is good. So this is the team I still wouldn't bury, but man, they have been disappointing, and I'm not sure I see it with them either. So they're the only team I probably would not just 100% bury right now that still has a shot at the playoffs, but they're looking way up at the Colts, and I haven't seen many signs that the offense is going to be good in 3 weeks. And I don't
think things looking any better than they did last year when things were
worse,
bad. Worse. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not ready to bury them. I mean, I think they have a defense. They got Nico. They got Stroud. Who are they ruining Stroud? Is that happening between our?
Man, imagine how good he'll be after that car wash, man.
Stick him in Minnesota.
The extra wax and the
go visit McVay for a while. Yeah,
wheel treatment.
Yeah. I'm not burying them, but we talked off the air. Maybe sooner than later, we might repick our playoff teams. Right now, I would not put Houston in.
No, you can't.
I mean, yeah.
And if that stat is correct, then very likely all these teams are in draft mode.
Yeah, I will say the AFC is easier to get that 7th seed than the NFC to me.
Yeah, it's hard to say that in September, but I would bet against any of those teams playing into January.
Mm-hmm. Clearly, I mean, if I gave you the Texans or everybody else, who would you take? You get the field or Texans? I would take the Texans.
Ooh, let's see how many. Well, I would take the Texans because there's really maybe one other team of the field that I would even think has a shot anyway. So, and I would like the Texans over that one team. So, yeah.
Jaxson Dart would have to be Johnny Unitas, or
yeah. And the Jets, maybe.
I'd say the Jets, maybe.
They've looked the most competitive of the other teams.
Yeah, I would take the Texans over the field.
Yep, same here.
And
all right, let us know. Let us know what you think. I'm excited for the Jaxson Dart era. We'll see if the Titans can turn things around with the new play caller. Let us know what you think about those 0-3 teams or any other topics for this week's mailbag at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. And make sure you subscribe on, drop a question on YouTube as well. Subscribe while you're there. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.